welcome to element E. We've now got to the final element, which is the on-road section. We thought we'd do a little quick introduction for this element first of all. First thing is to say that I'm going to be covering some theory throughout this element E, and there's also going to be a lot of practical training sessions as well, where we are going to be demonstrating set skills to you, everything from junctions to crossroads to roundabouts, meet situations, all sorts of things that we're going to cover here. And we're going to do little training videos for you for each one. And there's going to be a combination of theory that goes with it, and perhaps some theory at the roadside as well, and then practical demonstrations. And then what we're going to do once we've got all that is we're then going to put together on part of the route. In fact, we might even actually use the whole route that we actually use for the CBT, is to give you a demonstration riding through the route and putting the whole lot together. And I just want to refer to the manual I'm going to use here, just so I'm not doing any copyright infringement. This is Dr. J.M. Wells, colour file professional here, and we use this a lot for our driving lessons, and as you can see it's got some nice visual aids in it, so I'm going to be making reference to that. Plus I'm going to be using the whiteboard as well, and as I say, we're going to be out on the road doing theory at the roadside and also practical on-road sessions as well. So let's get into the video. Hello again and welcome back. Well, this is now element E, and by now, of course, you know who this is. John Macdonald speaking to you from ProScot. So this is now element E. This is the final element. Everything that we've done leads to this particular point now, where you're going to go out on the road. Now, your instructor has worked through element A, B, C and D with you. We're now required by law to go out on the road for a minimum of 2 hours. We personally like to be out on the road for longer than that with you, because it gives us an opportunity to develop your skills further. That's why these videos are so important, because it means that if we can get through the theory parts quicker, we can dedicate more time to the riding, and that's very important. It's also very important if you're going to be doing the CBT only. We want to make sure you're at a good standard and you feel really safe to go out there and ride your motorcycle. And also for those that are going on to do direct access, we want to make sure that we've laid solid foundations for the rest of your training. So this on-road part, everything leads to this particular part now. Now, your instructor is going to give you a little chat before they go out. Basically, they're going to say what I'm going to say to you just now, which is that we'll be out on the road for a minimum of 2 hours. I'm going to give you directions. For example, at the end of the road, turn left, or at the end of the road, turn right, or take the next road on the left, or take the next road on the right. If it's a roundabout, they'll say to you at the roundabout ahead, take the first exit off to left, 9 o'clock position. At the roundabout, go straight on, second exit, 12 o'clock position, or at the roundabout, turn right, third exit, 3 o'clock position. So the instructors are always going to give you clear instructions on where they want to go. If you've not heard them clearly, just tap your helmet with your hand a couple of times and they'll repeat it again for you. If you still can't hear or you've lost radio contact, pull into a position of safety and your instructor will have a look. They'll also say to you that at the start of the on-road session that they'll start with a higher level of instruction to begin with. Now, that higher level instruction could be full talk through, depending on your ability. It could be what we call coaching, which is basically asking you questions, what you're going to do, just to get your mind thinking. But it'll be a level of instruction that they feel is appropriate to your ability and your needs. As the session goes on, they will begin to reduce the amount of help and support that you're given to you as you begin to improve. Now, we tend to do our on-road session in sections. So for example, we start off with basic junction work to begin with, what we call a nursery area. We then progress on to intermediate areas and then on to more challenging situations. But remember, bear in mind, it is still CBT, so even though our more challenging situations wouldn't be quite as challenging as what we would be looking to do for direct access, for example. It's still compulsory basic training. So your instructor then is going to work in different areas. For example, we start off with the junctions to begin with. Now, we've already shown that for you in element D, and instead of it being done in the yard, we chose to go out on the road for that one. So that's the video that we're going to use for the basic junction work and demonstrating the OSM PSL routine to you, and also the priority at junctions for major and minor roads, and the difference between giveaway and stop. So we're going to use that video to help you to understand the element E. But we're going to develop element E further with junctions, because that doesn't just cover the basic T-junction. We're going to look at T-junctions that are a bit more complex. If you remember, we mentioned open and closed junctions, so we'll show you a few more of those. And I'll be giving a running commentary on what I'm actually doing on the bike. We're actually going to demonstrate crossroads to you as well, and that'll be part of it. We'll give a little introduction to these lessons first, and then we'll actually give a demonstration. So we'll do crossroads and we'll be doing roundabouts. So we're going to cover all the junctions for you as well. So that's what we do. We start off then with the basics of the junction work to begin with. Then we progress on to emergency stops and U-turn, and again, no surprise to find that despite the fact that we've already done it in the yard in element C, I will actually give a demonstration of it actually out on the road as well for the emergency stop and the U-turn. From there we tend to progress on to traffic lights and pedestrian crossings. Again, I'll give an introduction and an explanation about pedestrian crossings and traffic lights, and particularly filter lights. Now this is particularly to help our provisional licence holders as well, of course. We'll then move on to things like obstructions, parked cars. How do we deal with parked cars on the side of the road? How do we meet other traffic that's coming towards us? When's it safe to go through the gap? So again, I'll give a brief explanation on that, and we'll do a little bit of video on that. We'll look at town riding, in particular speed limits and the use of speed and hazard awareness. We'll do a little video for you on that one as well. We'll begin to then start building that onto how we deal with different gradients, uphill, downhill, and we'll give a little video on that. Basically we select lower gears to help you up the hill and lower gears to help control your speed down the hill, and we'll show you how we do hill start as well. We'll also then move on to some general town riding, where we'll, by this time it's starting to get a little bit more challenging. We'll move on to things like busier areas where there's going to be more traffic, more pedestrians. The speed limits are going to increase from 20 mile per hour towards 30, towards 40. So all the time we're beginning to stretch a little bit and just get you that bit more experience that you actually need when you're on the road as well. We will then, when we've done enough town riding, we'll actually then look to develop your skills more out on the road, on the country roads, where we'll look at bends and how you actually deal with bends safely as well. So there's a lot in the on-road CBT, and we've got, as I say, a minimum of 2 hours to cover all that. And at the start of the chat, the instructor will basically say pretty much what I'm saying just now. Maybe not quite as much detail as what I'm going into, but remember, this is a training video. We'll also explain to you that if when you come up to a junction that you're looking for safe gaps for you to emerge out of, you're not looking for the group. So if a safe gap for you to get out you go. The instructor will simply ask you to pull in a position of safety, but be ready to move off again when required to do so. Your instructor will also say that it might appear to be in different positions behind you. This is particularly true if you're more of a novice rider, where they're going to want to come alongside you as you come up to closed junctions, particularly to make sure that you're making the right judgment, and they'll ask you if you're seeing if it's clear and if it's safe to go. We don't want you pulling out of junctions if it's not safe. Remember, we don't have dual controls, unlike a driving instructor where they've got dual controls and they can stop the car. The only way we've got of control is through the radio mic. So your instructor will be giving you a higher level of support to begin with, typically coming up alongside you, just to make sure that you're observing correctly. Once the instructor starts to get more confidence though, they'll start to transfer more responsibility back to you. So don't be surprised then, as the CBT is going on, the instructor should be given less guidance, less help, because we're working towards what we call independent competence, giving you a higher level of support to begin with, and then reducing that level of support so that you're making more decisions for yourself. Now the car drivers, once they've mastered the basics of riding a motorcycle, they generally find the on-road stuff not too difficult for them. People that tend to or riders that tend to struggle a little bit more with this is, of course, the provisional licence holders that don't have any road experience. That's why it's so important that you watch these videos and study your highway code before you actually come along. And the DVSA has now also produced a series of helpful videos which we're encouraging you to watch as well. So we're trying to get you to do as much preparation work as you can before you come along for your CBT. So without any further ado now, what we're going to do now is we're now going to build on the skills that have been taught in the yard, and we're going to start working our way now through these skills. Okay, so let's look at the first skill then, which I think the way I'm going to do it is probably going to be the emergency stop and U-turns. Thank you. Okay, well here we are then at the area that we would use for our U-turns and our emergency stops. Most schools are going to find an area with a nice straight bit of road where you've got good line of sight behind you and in front of you, a road that's going to be wide enough. Remember what we said before, a safe, legal, convenient area. So that's why we use this particular area here. Now I'm not going to go repeating stuff that we've already done in element C. In element C we gave a good explanation and a briefing on the emergency stop and on the U-turns, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate here on this part of the video for element E, the on-road now. So the first thing I'm going to say is this is where we come for a safe, legal, convenient area. The road here is a standard width road, about 24 feet wide, which is about the same width basically as you have in the test centre for the Module 1 test between the two white lines. It's the same width. So once we've picked our safe, legal, convenient area, we use all the skills that we taught you earlier in the yard, the slow speed control, the balance, the steering, etc, etc. So I'm now going to demonstrate that to you. So first thing is getting on the motorcycle and getting the bike started up, and this is what your instructor will be asking you to do. And all the instructor's asking you to do now is to actually demonstrate that you can do a U-turn out on the main road the same way as you did in the yard. Now the main difference, as you can imagine, is that we now have real pavements. In the yard we were using cones. Now we've got real pavements, and we've also got real traffic, vehicles moving. So it's very important then you take effective observations and you're aware of the distance or the amount of room and space that you need, whereas before you could have afforded to run wide and run between the cones. This time you can't. You must do it within the width of the road. So here we go then. Checking my left blind spot, checking my left mirror, looking ahead, check my right mirror, my right blind spot, far enough away from the junction behind me, moving off positively. Using the slow speed control method, slipping the clutch, throttle steady, and just controlling the back brake. Round we go, and then to a controlled stop into the side. Now I did that nice and slowly there. You'll maybe feel more comfortable doing it a little bit faster than that. We talked about the speeds in the yard as well, didn't we? So I was doing it nice and slowly, so it gave me time to actually tell you what I was doing as well. Now the instructor will do as many U-turns out here in this area as they feel is necessary before they feel that you look comfortable and you look confident. But remember, they wouldn't have brought you out of the yard and they wouldn't have brought you onto the road unless they were already pretty comfortable with your bike control. And we do it tight enough in the yard to know that when we do bring you to this area that you will be able to actually do the U-turn. So we'll get you to do a few of them, as I say, until we can see you're comfortable with it. The next one we'll do is emergency stop, and that's what I'm going to show in the next clip. Okay, so we're now going to demonstrate the emergency stop to you. Again, we're using the same area as we used for the U-turn, and this gives the instructor a good opportunity to be able to look up and down the road to make sure it's going to be safe to carry out the emergency stop manoeuvre. Now remember that in the yard we were only doing emergency stops at somewhere between 10 and 15 mile per hour, so it makes sense for us to come out here and start at that sort of level to begin with, at 10 to 15 mile per hour. The road that we use here though is a nice long bit of road, and it gives us an opportunity to do several emergency stops the same way as we would do several U-turns, and still we were happy and you were happy that you felt comfortable and confident. Same thing with emergency stop. So we start off typically at that 10 to 15 mile per hour range, just basically doing what we did in the yard, and then we would build that speed up maybe 5 mile per hour at a time, as long as you look comfortable. If you didn't look comfortable at that speed, then we would stick at that speed or might even go slower again. But until we get you, this is a 30 mile per hour speed limit in this area, till we get you towards the 30 mile per hour. So you're now beginning to perform the emergency stop at higher speeds. Again, it's exactly the same information that I gave in element C in the yard, no change at all. So all that information's there. So if you've not already done so, if you're looking at this element now without having looked at C, you're missing out a lot of the information here. So make sure you've looked at element C first before you look at this video. So we're now going to do the emergency stop. Of course, I am actually keeping an eye on my mirror because I'm doing a demonstration, but your instructor would be keeping an eye out for you. And they have a little system where they basically turn their back and point to the side of the pavement, and that basically means that they're aborting the U-turn. Perhaps as when you did your observations and you moved off, from the time you moved off the situation's changed and they can no longer give you the emergency stop safely. Because remember, an emergency stop, as we said before, we don't normally check our mirrors before it because that can cause a delay, and when the instructor puts their hand up to signify that they want you to carry out the emergency stop manoeuvre, you're working on the principle that they have already carried out our observation for you and made sure it's safe for you to carry out that. If they don't feel it is safe, as I say, they will turn their back on you and they will point to the side of the pavement, meaning for you to come in and stop as normal. They want you to check your mirrors, give a signal for whatever reason they've asked you to pull in, but there's a reason why they've aborted. Okay, so what we're now going to do is we're now going to do the emergency stop. So I'm going to start the motorcycle up and I'm going to ride down towards Lewis and demonstrate it. So I'm doing my checks again, moving off, getting up to second gear, waiting for Lewis to put his hands up, which he's done now. Close shuttle, front brake, back brake, clutch in, foot out, stop. Now that I've stopped to check my mirrors to see if I need to give a left signal for pulling in, because I'm going to be pulling in, I'm going to check my right blind spot, my right mirror, look ahead, left mirror, check my left blind spot. There's nobody needs a signal. I'm now just going to pull into the side. Now, Again, the instructor will give you as many shots at the emergency stop as they feel is necessary, until they feel that you're comfortable with the emergency stop. So this is the area then, as I say, we're going to use for the emergency stops and the U-turns. Okay, thank you. Let's look at another skill next. Now, we've already covered in element C, we've already covered junctions, emerging and turning in, and we went through the OSM PSL procedure for that. And in element D, we also covered junctions, crossroads and roundabouts. But me being me, belt and braces approach, I thought that what we'd do is, since this element E, as you will do in your CBT as well, we will cover these things again out on the road with you. So I'm going to go through it again, but very quickly, on the assumption that you've already seen element C and element D, which you should have done, hopefully, and this will act like a little recap. Now, as I said, this is actually the colour file professional that we use for our driving students, so I'm going to use this again here for yourselves. Now, you'll see here it's approaching junctions to turn left. So that's the first thing, we're approaching junctions to turn left, turning from the major road here, as we see over here, major road into a side road on the left, and we've explained that before. Now, if you look at the little checklist here that we would teach, we would be teaching students that first of all they've got to look out for road signs and road markings. For example, any signs such as this indicating that there's a road on the left, you'll see the major road thicker and the minor road on the left. You're not always going to find that sign though, especially if you're in a built-up area. The council won't spend money on that sign, and what they'll tend to do is just rely very much on the paint. Paint's cheaper than road signs. So you're going to look for maybe a break between the buildings, break between parked cars, or you might even see the giveaway line as you drive along the road. So you're going to first of all try to use the signs, the road signs and the road markings to try and identify where the junction is. Now, on the cars, of course, it's mirror signal manoeuvre, and the manoeuvres broke down to position, speed, look. On a motorbike, if you go back here, remember what we taught. We taught observation signal manoeuvre, because you don't always just use your mirrors. It might be a combination of mirrors and rearward glances. That's why it was called observation. So you'll see the car driver here then. The first thing the car driver does is to apply that mirror signal manoeuvre routine. And the signal timing is very important. And remember, we said that if you're about doing a 20 mile per hour zone about 40 metres back, so that you want to signal correctly and in good time. You don't want to be too late, but you don't want to be too early either. Now, the position you'll see here in the manual, it says position correctly for going left. Now, remember what we said, that's about a metre from the edge of the pavement, roughly. And the speed on approach here, we tell the students to reduce their speed down for a safe speed to be able to turn in for the car. Typically, if it's safe to turn in, about 10 to 12 mile per hour. If it was very tight, narrow, they might need to go even slower than that, even down to first gear. And generally in a car, they would turn in the second gear. Well, guess what? On a motorbike, we're doing the same. Same sort of speeds, same sort of gear. Again, you're going to select the gear before you turn in. So you're going to check your mirrors, and you'll see in the car here they tend to check the main mirror and left mirror. We're going to check both our mirrors on a motorcycle. We're going to signal left and signal in good time to let other people know what we intend to do. We're going to position so that we're positioned for going left. Remember what we said, about a metre from the pavement. And you'll see that in between the cars I've just drawn the motorbike here like a little cross just to signify the motorcycle. So mirror, or in our case observation, signal, position correctly about a metre from the pavement, and then we're going to reduce the speed down and get the appropriate gear before we turn in. Now, generally speaking, that's going to be second gear if you can turn in without stopping. There are some times, so if it's really tight and narrow, you'll be going in first gear. Again, here, the point of turn for us is just at the point where the pavement begins to curve. We follow the natural curvature of the pavement and round we go. Coasting, that's where you pull the clutch in and you sort of freewheel around the corner. We don't do that. So if you've had to check downshift to second gear, the clutch should be out fully as you turn in, unless you're having to go down to a slower speed or first gear, in which case you're using slow speed bike control. Now, the point of turn, as you can imagine, here is just at the point where the pavement begins to curve and goes round. Again, here we're talking about observation with the cars. Observation simply means keeping an eye out for any other danger, such as this car here that might want to turn right. Look out for any pedestrians that might step off the pavement or walk out in front of you, such as here, for example. Remember, the pedestrians take priority, so if they start walking across the road, you must let them cross. If there was a cyclist cycling in front of you, then let that cyclist clear the junction before you turn in. Don't try and pass the cyclist and then cut in front of them. So look out then for other traffic. Always remember the priority and who's got the priority. Look out for cyclists, look out for pedestrians. So I think you can see there that the mirror signal manoeuvre routine for a car is very, very similar to the observation signal manoeuvre routine for the motorbike. Now then, over the page, And we're now going to look at the right-hand turn-in from the major road to the minor road. Again, the checklist is very, very similar. As you can see here, we look out for the road signs, the road markings. In this case here, and that's the very first thing we do, in this case, the road signs this time, your triangular warning sign showing the main road with the minor road on the side. On the side, again, you don't always get these signs, especially when you're in built-up areas. Again, the council tend to rely very much on the paintwork. So again, we're going to look out for the giveaway signs, break between buildings, maybe park cars along here, a gap, and park cars here, or cars entering and leaving. All that can help us to identify where the junction is. So it's very important that we extend the vision and try to identify the junction. But use your road signs, road markings to help you to do that. Again, we can go through this much quicker now. I would normally be coaching and asking the right questions here. But again, the mirror signal manoeuvre routine for a car becomes observation signal manoeuvre. Remember we taught that before. So again, the motorcyclist, once they've identified the junction and in good time, checks first of all the mirrors so you can determine the position and speed of any following traffic, give the appropriate signal, in this case that you're turning right. Now, because you're going to be moving from the centre of your lane, as you can see, you're moving over towards the centre line, you're going to do a wee quick shoulder check in your right mirror and your right shoulder just to make sure it's safe to move over to the appropriate position. The appropriate position will be close to the centre line without going over it and as close as you can position to it for safety. Remember, if there was a vehicle here and this yellow car came along, then you wouldn't want to narrow the gap too much, but you would generally position towards the centre line. Once you're in position, reduce the speed down to the appropriate speed to let you turn in. Remember what we said before, if there's nobody coming towards you, generally speaking, that's going to be about second gear, about 10 to 12 mile per hour, and then before you turn in, remember that all-important lifesaver, and we said it was in line with that curb. If you extended it out, the lifesaver done there, which is roughly about 2 to 3 bike lengths or 1 to 2 seconds before you turn. Alright, now if you did have to stop because this yellow car was coming, remember the priority. You can't turn in if that person's coming along. If by turning in you forced them to slow down, brake or change direction, then you shouldn't have done that. You should have waited, allowed them to pass and then turn in. Remember, any cars that are waiting to come out the side road here, they should wait for you, but again, be observant just in case. Now if you look at the top picture here again, the driver here is aware of the pedestrian that's going to step off the pavement maybe and walk across. Remember we said pedestrians take priority, let them cross. Also, be aware of any cyclists round about you as well. So if we go back here to the checklist on the left for the driver, again we said look out for the road signs, the road markings, apply the mirror signal manoeuvre routine for the car, which in our case was observation signal manoeuvre. Again, the timing of the signal, if you signal far too early, of course it can make it look like you're doing something else. If you're going left, for example, and you signalled far too early, it makes like you're maybe pulling at the roadside. If you signalled here that you're going right but far too far back from the junction, somebody might think you're parking on the other side of the road. So once you're timing your signals correctly and you're giving them if necessary, getting yourself into the correct position, well, we've mentioned that, and then reducing the speed on approach to an appropriate speed to allow you to turn in safely, and make sure you're in the correct gear before you turn in, and then the point of turn. Now in this case, the point of turn here is so that you don't cut the corner and go on the wrong side, unless of course there was parked cars in here and you had to cut the corner. Now in one of the videos we have to demonstrate this, but before you cut a corner to turn in or a junction, you'd need to look in first to make sure it was safe to do that. Alright, and again, keep an eye out, observation again for any other vehicles coming towards you and making sure that you're giving priority to those that should have it. Again, keep an eye out for the cyclists and pedestrians like we've said. Now here's one for you on judgment. If you're turning in and you need to be able to judge, this is particularly for our novice drivers here, you need time to be able to walk from that side of the road to that side of the road. If you don't think you've got enough time to walk across safely and you're coming up here to turn in before this yellow car, if you can't walk across safely, you've not got time to turn in safely either. So think about that when it comes to judgment. So there's the left hand turn in, right hand turn in. Very quickly now, let's look at the emerging. Now everything that we've said as far as OSM PSL applies also to emerging, so I won't need to go over that again. So again here, the first thing is look ahead and identify the junction up ahead. So identify the junction and decide, does it tell you if it's a giveaway junction or a stop junction? Now we covered them before and we explained them before and we know the difference between the two. Remember, a giveaway junction means that you only need to stop to give way to traffic on the major road if you can see that by pulling out you would cause them to stop, slow down or change direction. Or if you couldn't see, or as I say, your vision was restricted because it was closed junction, or there was parked cars. A stop junction, remember we said, legally, by law, you must stop, and typically it's going to be what we call closed restricted vision. Now remember the OSM PSL routine applies to both, and here I've just shown the motorcyclist positioned on the right hand side for going right, and the car's positioned here for going left, and in the diagram down below here I've shown the motorcyclist positioned to the left a metre from the pavement and the car's turning right, because there's no point drawn on top of the car. This is what we call an open junction. Remember I explained that before, where the driver can see clearly to the left or the motorcyclist to the right and to the left. Over the page though, what I've actually shown, we've got over the page here, is what's called a closed junction, where there's walls and you can see that the car driver coming up has got these areas in dark on either side where the driver can't see. Now as the driver gets closer to the junction, that view begins to open up. So here for example the white car was not visible, but as the driver gets further forward you can see the white car. Now when the vision's as restricted as this and it's closed like that, you'll either find it's a stop junction, or what you'll also find is as you come up with a motorcyclist you have to make the decision to stop. Remember, you can't pull out if you can't see, and especially if there's parked cars on either side restricting your zone of vision. What we did, remember, is we're going to show in this video, is we're going to creep and peep out, edge out. So if we go back here to the little checklist here, we're going to talk about that in a moment. But first of all, let's pop over the page and finish off what we're saying here. So again, the MSM PSL routine for cars, but it's OSM PSL for us with motorbikes. Again, the same stuff about signal timing, positioning to the left and to the right is appropriate. Again, the speed on approach. This time you're going to approach at a speed that's going to allow you to stop safely if you need to. So you're looking to go on a giveaway, but being prepared to stop. On a stop junction, you're approaching, looking, of course, to stop. So you generally come up slower. On turning in from major road to minor, remember we said that if it's safe to do so, you usually go in second. Approaching giveaway junctions, unless it's actually clear, open, and you can see, you're generally going to come up in the first gear, being prepared to stop. Remember the observations? We said that as you approach the junction, you should be scanning to the left and to the right, looking to see if it's clear, and judging. Now let's just talk very quickly about how we judge here. If you're turning left and you're moving into the path of a vehicle, you need to be able to walk across the road and walk back again twice. In other words, once across, once back, because you're moving into its path. Remember we said though, if you were emerging right and you're cutting across a vehicle's path, you need once. Also, okay, so always remember that when you're only cutting across the path, you don't need as much distance or as much time. Once. But if you're moving into the path of the vehicle, like turning left here and there's a black car coming along, you need to be able to walk across, walk past. If you're turning right and the yellow car was coming along here, you need to be able to walk across and walk back. So as we're coming up then, we should be scanning on approach, approaching the vehicles. Remember, again, you're on the side road, they're on the main road, they have priority over you, and again, watch out for other driver signals. It could be misleading. So there might be a driver coming along here, for example, signalling left, but how do you know that driver's definitely going in? That driver might have left the signal on by mistake, or maybe going past the park here. Now, if the driver's far enough away and you could emerge out safely, that's fine. But if that driver's too close with the left signal on, remember, wait until the wheels physically turn and the driver starts to turn in before you commit to pulling out the judgment, out the junction. Again, keep an eye out for pedestrians and cyclists. We said that before, and we've already explained to you about judgment. Quickly over the page now. The closed junction, remember what we said, a closed junction is when you come up and you're trying to look to the right and to the left, that you can't see clearly to the left and to the right. When you see a junction like that, always stop. Never pull out if you can't see. And if you have stopped and you still can't see due to parked cars, this is when you do this. Peep and creep, which basically means edging out. Now in the car manual, it just means edging out slowly with the car. With us, it's the same thing, edging out, creeping out slowly to improve our vision. So there you go, there's a recap on the T-junctions for emerging turning in. We'll also do a recap for crossroads as well. Okay, thank you. Now this is the area that we use for our junctions and our crossroads. The area that you saw in element C where we did the junctions for element C, that's the area that we use for the first junctions, what we call the nursery area. So this is a more of an intermediate area. Notice that now there's parked cars. You'll notice that I've got open and closed junctions in this area as well we're doing, and there tends to be more traffic volume. So I'm going left at the end of this road here. So I've checked my mirrors, signalled left, little check on my left shoulder since I'm out of position and moving over about a metre from the pavement, slowing down using both brakes, looking right, looking left, looking right, looking left, and I can see it's clear to come out, so out I come. I cancel the signals, I check the signals I've cancelled, I check my mirrors, and you'll notice I'm giving plenty of room here from the parked cars. Now the meter from the car is just in case the door should open. Now at the moment I've got an oncoming car, pedestrian coming up near this pedestrian crossing, but it's gone past, an oncoming car, check my mirror, and I'm holding out just enough from the parked vehicles on my left, but without conflicting with the oncoming vehicle on my right. Extend my vision up ahead, I see somebody on what looks like a little mobility scooter, and there's a car behind that as well, so I'm now just adjusting my position and my speed to be safely away from the parked cars on my left, so if anybody opened the door. And there's the mobility scooter and the car that was behind. Now we're going to be turning right here. I've got to watch this pedestrian for running out. There she goes. So I'm checking both my mirrors, signalling right. I'm already in the correct position for turning right, so I'm not going to bother with a shoulder check. Checking the black car, looking ahead, looking in. Mirror, shoulder check, make sure it's safe. Keeping an eye on the driver in the black car just to make sure they didn't move there. Cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, and check both my mirrors. Now you'll notice I was already in the position to deal with the parked car, so I didn't need to check my mirror and my right shoulder for moving out. Now I'm going to be turning right at the junction here, so again I'm checking my mirrors. I'm signalling that I'm going right in good time, reducing my speed down. I'm in the correct position for turning right, looking ahead, looking in. I see two parked vehicles, so I'm just going to do a lifesaver look. And I'm actually going to cut the corner slightly because of the parked vehicles, but I've already looked into the junction to make sure that no one was coming out. Cancelled my signal, check they've cancelled, check my mirrors. Now you'll notice here I'm sort of going round the speed bump here. If I go right over the middle of it, it gives you a hefty wee bump, and if you do have to go over the middle, go over it slower. Now I'm going to be turning right up here, so again I'm checking both my mirrors. I've got parked vehicles on both sides of the road, so I've got to watch for oncoming traffic like this. Getting back to position for the right hand turn, looking ahead, looking into the junction, check my mirror, lifesaver look, watch I don't cut the corner, and then turning in. Now this is the area that we use, doing a series of lefts and rights, just so you can build on that OSM PSL routine. I'm going left at the end of this road, mirrors checked again, signal left, didn't bother check my left shoulder, wasn't a significant change, and you'll notice it's close to the left, starting to open up to my right. I'm coming up slowly, slow bike, fast head, out I come, and I managed to pull out without needing to stop there. Okay, so this time we're going to be talking about crossroads. Now there are different types of crossroads that you can encounter. Now remember what a crossroad is. A crossroad is basically two T-junctions back to back. So there you go, there's a T-junction there, and if I covered that one, there's a T-junction there. And you've got a giveaway on that side and a stop junction on this side. So a crossroad is effectively where two roads cross. Alright, now we've got different types of crossroads, and the first thing to say is that we should look out for the road signs to identify a crossroad. Now there's what the road sign is going to look like for a crossroad. A thick black line with the two little lines either side signifying a crossroad. If you remember, if one side of it was covered up, that would show a minor road on the left, that would show a minor road on the right. So that indicates that we've got a crossroad up ahead. Now we don't always have those road signs, remember, so again you're relying on looking out for the paint, breaks in buildings, gaps between cars, or the actions of other drivers. You could even get a situation like this where there's no paint. Now that might just be because they've re-tarmacked the road and they've not had a chance to put the paint down yet, or it could be what we call an uncontrolled crossroads. Now an uncontrolled crossroads basically means that there's equal priority in all directions. Nobody has priority, in other words. So different types of crossroads. This is what we call effectively an uncontrolled crossroad here. This is controlled by give way and stop, and you'll see that when the main road runs along here and we've got the two side roads on either side. This is a crossroad that's controlled by traffic lights, and as part of our video here we're going to be doing demonstrations of the traffic lights and filter lights as well. And this is what we call a box junction. Now that's something that we'll cover more in direct access and talk a little bit more about it, but basically what a box junction means is if you're turning left and going straight on, at no point should you be sitting in this boxed area. The only time you can do that is if you're turning right and you're prevented from doing so by other oncoming vehicles and it's an opportunity for you to turn right. That's the only time you could really sit in the junction. So in that case, every junction is in effect a box junction. Alright, now the ones that we're going to be teaching you on your CBT is basically the basic giveaway junction. We might have a stop and we might even have a couple uncontrolled, and we certainly will be doing some traffic light controlled as well for you. Alright, so there's the different types of crossroads that you're going to encounter. Now, if I flick over the page here, everything that I explained for junctions, T-junctions to emerge and turn in, also applies to the crossroads, except for the additional information that I'm now about to give you. So let's talk about the additional information. The first thing is, remember as it's got down here, MSM PSL recap for cars. Well, of course, on a motorbike, that's OSM PSL. So we're using the OSM PSL routine. Now let's explain quickly the priority at crossroads. The main road always has priority over the side roads. That's the very first thing to say. Now, when you're going from the minor road to the major road, that is from here out, if we're going left, and I'm just going to draw this for you quickly here, if we're going left like this, and we go that way, then the procedure for going left there, if there's nobody opposite, is exactly the same as it would be for a normal T-junction. If we were going straight ahead like this, okay, then again it would be the same procedures as before. We'd be looking to the right, to left, making sure it's safe, and again if there's nobody opposite, we just drive across. Now we position ourselves to the half that gives us the most direct route across. So if there's parked cars there, it makes sense to position more to the right so you can get a direct run across. If the crossroad was offset to the right, you'd position more to the right. If it was offset to the left, you'd position more to the left. It's as simple as that. And if it's a normal inline crossroad like this, you would take your normal position here, just slightly left of centre for going straight across. Now if you were turning right to come out of here, and again there's nobody opposite, then again it's just normal observations and you merge right. So far then there's no change. The change occurs, if I'm going to rub this out now, if there was a car opposite here. Now let's suppose, and I don't want to confuse things too much, so I'm going to take some of these lines back out again now. Let's suppose that the motorcyclist wanted to go to the left and the car wanted to go to the left. There is no conflict of interest. Let's suppose the car driver wanted to go straight on and the biker wanted to go straight on. Again, there's no conflict of interest here. You'd still take your observations, you keep an eye on each other, but there's not a conflict of interest. So when is there a conflict of interest? Well, let me show you when that occurs. Let's suppose one of the vehicles wishes to turn right. Now let's say you were the biker and you wanted to go to the right. And there's a car driver opposite here, and that car driver wants to go to the left or go straight on. Well, and you both arrived at the crossroad at the same time. You give priority to the driver. The person that's going left and going straight on takes priority over the vehicle turning right. But let's suppose you got there before the driver, and the driver was coming up, and it's clear and safe to get out, and you can see it's safe to get out, then you can pull out because the driver's not at the junction yet. But if the driver gets to the junction before you and they can see it's clear and safe, they will more than likely pull out before you. So the problem starts to occur for most students, we find, when they both arrive about the same time. You think, oh my God, it's like a Mexican standoff. Who should go now? Well, it's pretty simple. The person that's going left or going straight on takes priority over the vehicle that's turning right. Okay. Now, what happens then when you both want to go right? Well, we've got a little simple system for that one, and I'm going to make sure that you're aware of it. So let's suppose you're the biker and you want to go right, and there's a car driver over here and that car driver also wants to go right. Well, you'll get sometimes a driver opposite that will flash their lights at you. That's just simply a warning of the presence. Don't assume that means it's safe for you to go. Take your observations, make sure it's safe. If they still continue to wait, then move off with caution but keep an eye on them. Let's say the person opposite waves their hand. Treat that in exactly the same way. It could be a warning, they're encouraging you to come out, the same as a flashlight could be an encouragement for you to come out, but you can't assume that it is. You should just take it simply as a warning. Let's suppose the driver opposite is sitting looking at you and you're looking at them, and it's this Mexican standoff, but you can see it's clear and it's safe. Then again, with caution, you'd begin to move off, keeping an eye on them if they're still sitting there. Now let's suppose the driver opposite starts to move out before you go. That's fine. They're taking that decision process away from you. By moving out first, they're taking that away. You let them go and then you're going to go. Alright, so there's basically the procedure then when you're emerging out the side street. Alright, now let's look at what the procedure is when you're turning from the major road to the minor road. Let's suppose this is you on the motorbike and you want to turn in there to go right. Again, you come along and you turn in right as you would do normal. Let's say you're coming along here and you want to go left to go in there. Again, you turn in left as normal. The only difference is now you've got this extra third road to look out for. But so far, so good, not a change. So let's add in the additional change. Let's suppose there's a car that wants to go right to go into there and you want to go right to go into there. Well, basically, there's different ways of doing it. This is what we call, and this one here is called near side to near side. And we're actually showing it here in the picture here, near side to near side. Now, it's not the preferred method. The preferred method is this one over here, offside to offside, and this is the one that's shown in the highway code. However, although it's shown as a preferred method, we have to be extremely careful, and I personally would not recommend it for you as a motorcyclist, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Because whilst this one has the disadvantage that the driver here in the green car, his view is blocked because of a lorry and somebody could be coming down, it has also got several advantages. Behind the motorcyclist here, for example, we can have a car parked like that, sorry, not parked, behind it, and we can all turn in and then they can turn in. The problem is, if I take that back out again, and I do this sort of situation, and we put the car driver here like this, about to turn in, and you're like there, about to turn in like that. The problem you've got is, if other cars come up behind you in the motorcycle, and other cars come up here, then nobody can turn in, we're jammed. That can be the first problem. The second problem is, I've seen situations where the motorcyclist has come along, try to do this one, which is called offside to offside like this, and the motorcyclist tries to go around the back of the car like that, but the car driver turns in first and knocks the motorcyclist off, and that is the problem with that type for a motorcyclist. So, when it's an inline crossroad like this, you're better to stop short of the car, let the car turn first, because remember, you're vulnerable, you don't have a shell protecting you. You want a bubble of protection to the front of you and to the side of you, and putting yourself close to a car like that and round the back, if that car turns in, you can get knocked off. So always be aware of that one. So when I'm turning right at an inline crossroad, whilst the highway code suggests this is the preferred method, that's the method that I use, but I don't commit to turning in until that vehicle turns, or if I can see safely past the vehicle, i.e. it's a smaller vehicle and I know I can turn in safely, then I will. But if it's a large vehicle, I don't. I'll wait till they've turned in first. Alright, now the highway code effectively we'll come back again, the highway code effectively says there's three things that determines if you're going to use near side to near side or offside to offside. What it says is the stagger or the offset of the crossroad. So I think you can see if that was offset further up here, that road was further up, and then if we moved it further down, one of them I'm going to use my offside to offside, the other one I'm going to use near side to near side. So for example, if I drew that road further up here now, and I drew this road from here up to here, I think you can see that the motorcyclist can go back there and the car can go down there. So as you can see in that one, it's a totally different position that I can be in. If we did this one here though, I think you can see, and sorry, we did the road down at this side, the motorcyclist would stop short here and go in that way, and the car driver would go in here. So whether you go offside to offside or near side to near side can depend on the stagger, the offset or the layout of the crossroads, the position of the opposing vehicle and any road markings which may be present. And that's the things that's going to determine what you're going to do then at a crossroad. Okay, so I just wanted to clear that up with you then. The priority at crossroads, how you turn minor road to major road, how you turn from a major road to a minor road, the positioning for going straight ahead, we talked about that, and how you deal with approaching vehicles that are turning right, i.e. offside to offside, near side to near side, and keeping your observation and anticipation. Now, we will also be doing crossroads that are traffic light controlled as well, and filter light, and we're going to cover that for you in the video and actually explain to you how you do that. Now I've got a speed bump here. I'm going to choose to ride round the speed bump, but I'm not taking a speed advantage by doing it. We're in the 20 mph zone here. I'm going to be turning right, so my mirrors are checked. Signal right, check my right shoulder, move over, looking ahead, looking at the junction. This is a crossroad here. Lifesaver look, and then turning in. Again, you'll notice here I'm keeping well away from the parked vehicles on my left. There's nobody coming towards me here, so you'll notice I'm taking and centralising the danger on left and right. Got a speed bump here, but I can move to left without getting too close to parked vehicles. Now I'm going to go left at the end of the road here. It's a crossroad. Check my mirrors, signalling left, and I'm looking right, I'm looking left, I'm looking right, and I'm looking left, and I managed to get out there. Now I was not just looking right, left and right, I should also say I was also scanning across the road as well. Now I'm going to be turning left here. When you've got a crossroad, you're looking left and right, but you're also lifting your vision enough so you could see across to the crossroad as well. I've got parked vehicles on the left here, so you'll notice I'm holding well enough away from the parked vehicles. Now this is a crossroad up ahead here, so this time when I'm saying I'm looking left and right, I'm scanning, but I'm also looking ahead to the crossroad as well. So I'm going to be turning left here, so there's my mirrors checked, signalling left, Not bothered with left shoulder because it's not a significant change. Reducing the speed down, nice and slow, looking in all three roads here, to the right ahead and to the left. Slow bike but fast head, making sure it's safe there before I pull out. Cancel the signal, check they've cancelled, check my mirrors. Now I'm going to be turning right at the red car, turning right at the end of the road here, sorry, turning left, but I'm going to be moving out to the right first. So check my mirror, check my shoulder, and I'm moving out in good time for the parked vehicles. And again, you'll notice I'm giving more than a door's length here, because there's nobody coming towards me, and I'm not conflicting anybody by doing that. I was watching the car on the right just in case they pulled out. Now I'm going to go left at the end of the road here, check my mirrors, signalling left. We check to left because I've got to move over. I've got limited vision to the right and to left. This is what we call a closed junction at the moment. I still can't see, I'm looking, but I still can't see. I'm making the decision to stop. Now only when I stop now does my vision open up, and now I can see, and out I come. Cancel my signals, check they've cancelled, and I check my mirrors. I'm going to be taking the next road on the left here, so checking my mirrors, signalling left. I'm not going too close to left because of course I've got parked vehicles. Check my mirror, check my shoulder, make sure it's safe, watching the pedestrian on the other side, and in I go, giving plenty of room from the parked vehicle here should somebody open my door. Now the danger here is the silver car. Oops, it's turned right round. I thought it was going to come towards me. What I'm doing here is I've got parked cars on left and right, so you'll notice I'm centralising the danger by riding down through the middle. Again, I don't want to bounce over this bump, so I'm just moving slightly to left but without getting too close to parked vehicles. Okay, so this time we're going to talk very briefly again about the use of signals. Now, why do we give signals on a motorbike? Well, we give signals to inform other road users of our intention. So there are a number of different signals that we can give, and I'm going to go through them just now. But as you can see here, we use signals as part of the, in the car world, mirror signal manoeuvre, but on the motorcycle world it would be observation signal manoeuvre. So we use it as part of the OSM routine that I've been teaching you, and the position, speed and look. We can give signals to other road users. If you look here, there's the car driver. We can all relate to this one. The car driver signalling right, signalling left, and of course the brake lights. Now, on a motorbike, we have exactly the same thing, right indicator, left indicator, and the brake lights. And there's the equivalent arm signals, which we don't need to know, of course, at this stage for our CBT. And here's arm signals for traffic controllers. Here are some of the warning signs that you can get. For example, the hazard warning, not to be used when you park a car on the double yellow lines, as a lot of people use, but for some sort of hazard up ahead. Now, certain motorbikes are fitted with hazard warning. The flashed headlight, which should be taken only as a warning of presence, remember, it doesn't mean to proceed or to go. Take it as a warning of presence. Car with white lights on at the back, that's a sure sign that the car's reversing. And of course, the press of the horn, a warning of presence. So let's just talk back here now then a little bit about the signals. That you can give signals by indicator, we said, brake lights, as we mentioned there, signals by arm, which we could give on a motorbike, especially if your indicators had broken or your lights weren't working. You can give a left-hand arm signal on the motorbike, or a right-hand arm signal, or your right arm, if you look at me just now, Liz, right hand moved up and down, that is I'm slowing. Now, on a motorbike, when you take your hands off the throttle, it's going to slow anyway. That's I'm slowing down. That's the right-hand signal, and this is a left-hand signal. Now, we don't normally need to bother giving those arm signals because we've got the equivalent signals here. But sometimes I'll do them just to reinforce a signal if I thought my light, the sun was shining on my indicators, for example, and I'm not seeing them clearly, or somebody's really close behind, I might give an arm signal to really reinforce it. But we don't need to for CBT, as long as we're using indicators and using our brakes when you squeeze the front brake or the back brake, that's going to be fine. So that's the signals then to other drivers. So we're using those signals then as a form of communication. So not only are we giving signals out, but other drivers are giving signals to us as well. We'll be seeing their indicators and their brake lights and things like that. So we should be aware of this and anticipating it and asking ourselves, where's their driver's going? He's got a left signal on, they've got a right signal on, they've got the brake lights coming on, these high intensity lights here, letting us know that they're slowing down. And also the car's relative position could tell us something as well. If the car's positioned to the right, is it maybe turning right, or is it getting ready to pull up on the right hand side? If the car's moving more towards the left, for example, the vehicle in front, is it getting ready to pull in or to pull over to the side, or is it getting ready to turn left? So the car's relative position, and maybe even its speed, if somebody's in front of you slowing down, what are they about to do next? So always remember then that if we need to give a signal to inform someone, that signal should be given correctly and in good time. So if you're going left, signal left, we don't signal right, and vice versa. If we're going right, we don't signal left. So we don't want to confuse people. So we don't want to give the wrong signals. We also don't want to give signals that's far too early or far too late. If we give signals far too early and we're turning left, for example, it might make it look like we're just pulling in. But likewise, if we've already checked our mirrors, started to position and brake, and then we signal when we're almost at the junction, we're not giving people enough warning. So your instructors are going to help you then with the timing of your signals so that you're giving signals correctly and that they're properly timed and that they're given if necessary. If there's no one to benefit from the signal, let's say you're moving off from the roadside and there was nobody to benefit, you wouldn't need to give the signal. If you were pulling in, there was nobody to benefit, you wouldn't need to give the signal. Now 9 times out of 10 your instructor's going to be with you or someone else, so you'll normally always need to give that signal. So always make sure then that we, if necessary, we give signals correctly and properly timed to be able to let other drivers know what we intend to do. And we've also talked about some of the warning signals when we're out there as well. Okay, so there you go. There's a little video on signals. And again, when we're out giving our demonstrations, you're going to see us actually giving signals and that as well. And your instructors will help you with how and when to give signals. Now I'm going to be turning right here, so I'm checking my mirrors, signalling right, come out my lifesaver look, and then in I go. Cancel the signals, checking that they've cancelled, and then checking both my mirrors. Again, you'll notice here, again I'm giving plenty of room from the parked vehicles. Notice I'm keeping to the left as I go around the right hand bend. I've got parked cars left and right again. So again, you'll notice I'm centralising the danger. Just watching my speed every now and again just to make sure that I'm not creeping over the 20, and I'm keeping it most of the time around about 17, 18 in this area. I'm driving more to suit the conditions. Okay, well I thought we'd talk now then very briefly about the use of speed when you're out there on the road. And we're going to show you a little video on this one as well, and give you a demonstration. And that is that when you're out there, remember what we said about speed limits. Keep an eye out for those speed limits, and you're going to see them mounted up on posts, white with a red band round about the speed limit, or you might see them actually on the road themselves. If you're in a built up area, where you're seeing the lamp posts, but there's no signs round about, the chances is you're on a 30. And quite often looking up a side street, especially in Kirkcaldy, you'll see the 20s off to the side, and that's a good indication that you're on a 30. In Kirkcaldy especially, if you see a lot of speed bumps around, that's usually a 20 mile per hour zone you're in, but again, keep an eye out for your signs. Remember what we said, that if you come to the end of a road, and you see speed signs at the end, it means you're going out to some sort of change of speed. So if you were on a 20 and you're going at a 30, you'll see 2 30 signs. If you were going on to from a 30 to a 40, you'll see 2 40 signs. Likewise, look for these signs at the end of a road, but of course coming the other direction is at the start of the road. So look for speed sign changes at the end of a road or at the start of a road. Again, if you're turning into a road, always try and look for those speed signs before you actually turn in. Because there's a tendency to sometimes just drive underneath them and not see them. So always try and look into the junction before you turn in and see is there any new signs in there. It's amazing the amount of people that turn in from a 30 into a side road, drive right underneath the 20 signs, don't realise it, and then that's it. They're going along the road at 30 mile per hour when they're actually in a 20. Now, another point I should like to make, and that is that if you come to the end of a road or drive into a new road and there's no signs, it means that the road that you're going into is the same speed as the road that you've just been on. Now remember what we said before again about the use of speed, and that is that whilst we have a speed limit, it's not a target to be achieved at all cost. You can only do the maximum speed limit if it's safe to do it. So look if there's any hazards present, and if there is hazards present, then you'll need to drive at an appropriate speed for the level of danger that's presented. If it's safe enough to do it, then by all means do the maximum speed limit. So that's what we call by driving at appropriate speed. Now, you might be going too fast because you're breaking the speed limit. There's a fairly obvious one. You might also be driving within the speed limit but still going too fast. There could be danger and hazard around and you're just simply driving too fast for the level of danger. So make sure you're not driving too fast for the conditions. Likewise though, we don't want you driving too slow either. If it's quite clear that the risk is minimal and it's safe to do so, then we're looking for you to travel closer towards the maximum speed limit if you're capable of doing it and it's safe for you to do it. So always make sure then you're progressing at an appropriate speed for the road, the traffic and the weather conditions. Now, Tied in with use of speed, going too fast, going too slow, like we just mentioned, I think it's probably an appropriate time to mention what we mean by hesitancy. Now, hesitancy is something that we tend to worry more about someone that's going to sit an actual test, be it their motorcycle test or their driving test, because at that point, we shouldn't really be hesitant. Hesitancy occurs when there are clear safe gaps and opportunities to proceed or to go and you don't take them. For example, you're going to emerge out of a T-junction, left and right, and it's safe to go, but you don't take the gap. Or you're coming up to a roundabout and it's safe to proceed and to go into the roundabout and you don't take the gap. Now, there's a number of reasons why people can be hesitant. Mostly it's because they didn't look, so they didn't see the gap, therefore they didn't take it. Or they might be looking but not able to judge a safe gap. In other words, thinking they need more time and more space. Now, that's typical of our provisional licence holders and someone doing a CBT. Tend to be a little bit more cautious. And we would rather you err on the side of caution than taking chances and pulling out in front of people. Other reasons that you could be hesitant, you're maybe stopping with your motorbike, for example, at Junction, roundabout, and you've not made sure you're in the correct gear ready to move off. Now, when you go to move off, you notice you're not in the right gear, and you then waste time trying to get in the gear. So hesitancy is usually caused by not taking observations on approach to hazards and missing the gap or opportunity to go, particularly emerging from junctions, flowing onto roundabouts, or even in meet situations, which I'm going to explain next. Or it might be that you're seeing the opportunity to go, but you just don't have the confidence to go because you're not able to judge the speed, the distance. And that is one of the more difficult, what we call the higher order cognitive skills, is being able to judge distance, but your instructor will help you with that and judge speed and distance. And the final one I just mentioned there, not having the motorcycle prepared, ready to go, and therefore you're being hesitant. So there you go, a little bit then mentioned, and I just want to see my wee notes at the side on use of speed, too fast, too slow, and hesitancy. So good, we'll go and give a wee demonstration on that one now. Going right at the end of this road. Again, you know the routine by now, mirrors and signal. Don't need the shoulder check because I'm already in position due to the blue car. I'm looking, but I can't see, so I'm making the decision to stop. I still can't see for the parked cars, and in fact there's a roof of a car coming towards us here. If Lewis is looking, no he's not. If Lewis had been looking, he would have seen that car there. There was a car actually coming from the right there. So it would have been very tempting for me to have pulled out there, but the car was under cover. Now when you've got that, you've got to creep out. Now what I'm doing now is I'm doing what's called creep and peep. I'm creeping out slowly, but still looking to the right and to the left. Now once I get out far enough, when I'm out here, now I can see clearly past the vehicles to my right, and I can see far enough to the left. I can now make the decision to go. Cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, check the mirrors. Now I'm going to be turning right along here again, checking my mirrors, signalling that I'm going right, checking my right shoulder to make sure nobody's overtaking me, moving over to the right, reducing my speed down, checking my mirror, lifesaver look, it looks safe, and in we go. Cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, check my mirrors. Now we're going to be taking the next road on the right along here. So again, it's a usual routine, you should know it by now. Mirrors, signal, checking that it's safe to move over. I've got an oncoming car now, there's no way that I could turn in time before this black car, so I'm going to slow down and I'm going to wait. The car's turning left, car's flashed the lights, but I'm going to say to the driver, no, you can go first. So looking ahead, looking in, check my shoulder, and then I go. The driver had priority, and whilst they were trying to be nice by letting me go first, I decided to let the driver go first. Cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, and now checking my mirrors. Now this is a crossroad up here again, and I'm going to show how we turn right at the crossroad to merge right. Again, mirrors are checked, signals are applied, I'm already in the correct position, so no need to check my shoulder. Slowing down, I'm looking in all three roads, but I really can't see particularly well because of the parked vehicles. Notice I can't really see particularly well, and look, you'll see the roof of a car coming from the right, so I can't see that there. I'd have to creep out. Now let's suppose I had a car opposite wanting to go straight on down here or wanting to go left, that vehicle would take priority. Because I'm the one that's going right, I would let them go first if they're going left or they're going straight on. If they were going right and I'm going right, the vehicle that moves first generally is the one that's going to go first. So if they start to move first, fine, let them go. If they flash the lights like that driver did there just now, it's merely a warning of their presence. Don't assume it's safe to go. Check that it's safe. If they're waiting and you can see it's clear, then by all means off you go, but still with a level of caution, maintaining eye contact. If they're sitting there not doing anything, then you can see it's clear to go. Again, go with caution, but maintain eye contact with them. Make sure it's safe. So this is one of the danger ones when you're emerging right to come out of a crossroad and there's somebody opposite. So remember, if they're going left or straight on, they take the priority. If I was going left or straight on here and they were the ones going right, I'd be the one that would take the priority, but still keep an eye on them. When you're both going right, then obviously you've got to get eye contact and a bit of an agreement and understanding with each other. So at the moment I don't have anybody opposite. I'm going to creep out a little bit, make sure it's safe. It is. See it's safe, out I go. Cancel the signals, check they've cancelled, check my mirrors. Now, we talked about crossroads there, and when we come to this area, it's to practice junctions, emerging, turning in, T-junctions, it's to practice open and closed junctions, and it's also to practice crossroads as well. Now, we talked there about what happens when you've got to turn, and I'm just checking it's clear here. We talked about what happens when you're turning right at a crossroads, and you're emerging from the crossroads. Let's talk now about what you do when you're turning right at the crossroad and there's an oncoming car coming towards you. I've not had that situation yet. I've been riding around kind of hoping that that situation might develop, but it's not. Now I've got an oncoming car towards me, the gap's narrowing a little bit. I'll see what this driver's going to do there, pulling over, good, and that allows me to continue through. If the car had kept coming through, I'd have had to reduce my speed there and might, if it had got really narrow, consider even stopping. Okay, we're going to look here at what's called meeting other traffic. Now, I'm going to use, again, Dr. J.M. Wells's colour file professional for this one, and you'll see here that we've got a road and we've got a parked car on the left hand side here, a yellow car, and the driver of the blue car's coming through from the other side and has got a clear lane on their side, and the driver on the red car is having to move out round the yellow car and back, and they're given a safe distance from the yellow car without encroaching onto the other road. Now, that's not really considered a meet situation as such, because you're not actually crossing over the centre line. Now, I think you could agree here that if that car driver could go past that yellow car, give at least a door's length, a metre, and not encroach on another lane, then we could do that very easily on a motorbike because we're only 1/3 the width of a car. Now, if you look at this picture here, you'll see, again, we've got cars parked at the side of the road, but you'll notice now that the driver of the red car isn't able to quite give a full door's length and is now starting to encroach onto the other lane, and as a result, you'll notice that the driver's had to slow down more. Here, the driver was just under 30, here the driver's just under 20, so the smaller the gap, the cars went through smaller. Now, in this one here, you'll see the driver's doing something called acceleration sense. That is, the driver can see there's not enough of a gap to go past the yellow car without conflicting with the driver of the blue car and forcing them to slow down and brake and perhaps even stop. Now, because the driver of the blue car has a clear road on their side, they have the priority. Because the yellow car is on the driver's side and the red car here, they must give way to the oncoming car. If they can't get out round that safe lane back in again before causing this car to slow down or brake, then they must slow down. Now, in this case, the driver's checked their mirrors, they've not stopped, you'll see, 10 mile per hour here, and they're just slowing down, allowing the blue car to go past, and then they'll move out and round. In this one here, we have to assume here the road's even narrower still. The driver of the red car has been slowing down, and they've got to a point from where they've had to actually stop. They'll not let the green car go past. They've sat out slightly wider than a normal park position to keep their vision open, present themselves to the oncoming car, and then to safely be able to move out and move round about. Now, no surprise to find then that we're going to do a very similar thing when it comes to us on the motorbike. This here is called acceleration sense when you're slowing down on approach. And this is here called the hold back position. Now, we can quite clearly get through narrower gaps than a car can get through, but we still have a responsibility not to go through gaps that are too narrow. Now your instructor is going to help you with this, and there'll be times when the instructor can advise you to go through the gaps and there's plenty of room and safety. For example, if you've got a metre either side at least, you can go through. If you've got maybe say just over half a metre either side or about half a metre, then you can still go through but at real reduced speeds. If the gaps are getting less than that, you've really got to say to yourself, is it worthwhile squeezing through here? Should I maybe just hold back, wait, and then go through the gap? Now again, your instructor is going to help you with this. Okay, so if we look at the wee checklist here, that's using the OSM PSL routine then to deal with the hazards, all right, which we talked about. We talked about the clearance from the instruction, given at least the door's length, and the less the gap that you've got, then obviously the more you would have to slow down. So there's a relationship then between the clearance and the amount of speed. And again, for any approaching traffic, that's traffic coming towards you, again you should apply your OSM PSL routine. And remember that if the vehicle's parked on your side, it's the oncoming car that's got the priority. And likewise, if the car's on their side of the road, they should give priority to you. But be aware, not everyone gets it right. Now, we also mentioned the acceleration sense there. This was this one, where you're slowing down, letting the car come through before you go through, and applying your OSM PSL routine. And this one here, where you're holding back, waiting for the car to come through before you go through. Now, you might get situations where there's two cars parked on both sides. Who's got the priority now? Well, generally speaking, it's the car or the vehicle or you, whoever gets there first, that would tend to go through first. If you both arrive at the same time, it's a bit like Crossroads in the sense that if you've got someone opposite, you've got to get a bit of eye contact with each other and agree to who's maybe going to go through if there's not enough room for you both to go through. But again, your instructor is going to help you with this. If you've got a series of parked cars like this, then you'll be looking for gaps on your side to move into, or if you're coming another way, stop opposite a space to allow vehicles to come through. But again, your instructor is going to help you with these, what we call meet instructions. This is when you're dealing with, typically with obstructions at the roadside. And that could be parked cars, it could be a skip parked at the side of the road, but some sort of an obstruction. And potentially you have to go around that obstruction onto the path of oncoming vehicles, or they have to go round about you. And again, your instructor is going to take you down narrow streets and help you with this. Now I'm going to be turning right down here. This is a crossroads on the right, so I'm checking my mirrors, I'm signalling right. Now if there's another vehicle wanting to turn right into the crossroad on my left, then we would have to make sure that they were going to turn right before I committed to turning across their path. Now wee lifesaver look, and in I go. And there you go, that's the junctions. We'll pull into the side now and just finish off with just a wee chat at the end of the junctions, and hopefully that little demonstration's helped you a little bit. And so just to finish off the junctions there then, we did a series of left-hand emerges, right-hand emerges, and you'll notice they were a little bit more challenging than what we had before on element C. A bit busier, some were open, some were closed. We had some vehicles coming where we had to stop, we had some parked vehicles where we had to creep and peep out to improve our vision before we could go, so it gave me a chance to show you those ones. And we also got a chance there to show you how we turn in from the major road to the minor road as well, and we also got a chance to show you some crossroads there as well. So that's it for the T-junctions and the crossroads. The next set of junctions we're going to look at now is roundabouts. In our next video, we're going to look at how to handle roundabouts for turning left, going straight on and right, including mini roundabouts. We'll look at traffic lights, including filter lights, how to deal with hazards safely, and how to develop good awareness and anticipation skills through effective scanning and observation techniques. We'll also look at how to deal with gradients, one-way streets, and how to deal with and handle bends safely. That will be done in Element E Part 2.